Hello, lovely people, and welcome to my channel. My name is Stephanie, and this is Evolve Chit. It's my little corner of the world where I like to talk about spirituality, metaphysical stuff, universal laws, and psychology. So recently I was speaking with someone who follows me here on my channel about the core wound and core wound activation and what is it. So I thought I would attempt to tackle this and share with you my understanding of it and my personal experiences of core wound activation and the things that I've done to, in air quotes, heal it. And I wanted to talk about healing as well. So I never heard of these terms before until I, stumbled upon my spiritual path here, or this twin flames journey, about 7 years ago. And I read this in content by Leora. So Leora was a twin flames coach and spiritual teacher, and it is said that her teachings are the foundation of the teachings of some pretty popular coaches here on YouTube. So Leora says in her ebook, which you can find on Amazon, somebody uploaded it there. It looks like it was a PDF file or something. And I actually recorded it for myself because I learn better with some things with audio. So I did a recording of it, and I actually posted it out here on my YouTube channel on the playlist, the Twin Flame Teachings playlist. So go check that out. Leora says that the core wound is the space where the soul enters the physical body. And also the core wound is what keeps us grounded in this 3D reality. So when I was first triggered by all of this and happened upon the term twin flames back in 2017, I was probably your typical female in relationships. Some of them I was just like, that didn't work. I was like, that didn't work, moving on. And then there were a few that were just like, that didn't work. And were really upsetting, or there was some heartbreak there. But I'd never really been a person that had taken like the loss of a relationship like that. So I wasn't so devastated by it. I could have some gratitude for the experience and for what it was. Maybe I was sad for a week or something about the loss, but it was never anything that I was just like, crushed. Once I could see that it wasn't working or lasting, I could move on. So from 2012 through end of 2016, I had gone through a ton of flux in my life. I just so many major shifts that were happening with the divorce, losing my parents, other very personal, things like that kind of stuff. Moving was going on. I lost some friendships as a result of a lot of these changes. And I was just trying to, check all the boxes and make sure I could get everything done to, work and pay my bills and do things like that. So in 2017, when I met my fake twin flame, it just seemed like, any other, person I would meet and go out on a date with. And we had some stuff in common and had, enjoyed each other's company and everything. And probably about 2 months into it, I had texted him one day and said, hey, I got some concert tickets and I have an extra ticket. Do you want to join me? And it was actually a really cool show. And he had texted back, that he couldn't because he had other plans. And then 30 seconds later, he texts again and he says, look, I just don't have anything to give to anyone right now. You seem really cool, blah, blah, blah. I'm not really. So I kind of put that aside and just, was like, oh, well, that's such a bummer. We really enjoyed each other's company, had a lot of fun, and now it's over. So I left for a trip for work the week after that happened, and I was just beside myself. I was incredibly distracted. I couldn't focus on the meetings I was at, and was supposed to be a pivotal person in the conversations at these meetings and everything. I just had to do everything I could to stay focused. And when I flew home, I was thinking about it on the flight home. I think this obsessive energy had kicked in, and I just couldn't understand why. Why would this person end this connection? Just kind of be like, bye, and peace out. And he wasn't rude about it, but it just felt that way. I just couldn't understand it. And here, when I look back on it, I can just see it was my own emotional immaturity. in the process, but it was just, it triggered a wound, after so much loss and shift and, losing some key relationships in my life. I can see how that triggered me. And it was just, prime, prime time for something like that to happen and really just blow up my emotional state. So for the next, year and a half, I would say, even though that had happened and I had strongly believed based on some of these things that I was feeling at the same time, like the term twin flames was popping up in my, everywhere. It was in my social feeds. It was everywhere. And, as a marketing professional, I can see that. I'm like, this is just the algorithms, it's a popular topic. And if you're somebody who's inclined to one thing or another, or, if our devices are really listening to us like we believe, then yeah, it's pretty easy for some of these things to show up. But also, I could explain that away, but also I was seeing other stuff and synchronicities. And this person and I were like, showing up in the same place at the same time without like all that stuff you read about, like, top 10 signs this person's your twin flame. So a lot of that was happening. But once I kind of cleared this situation and worked through a lot of that like emotional turmoil that was going on inside of me, I finally got to a place where I was just like, well, whatever, if this person is my twin flame, then that will be what it needs to be. But in hindsight, like when I look back on it now, and I don't mean any disrespect to this person because I'm really grateful for what the energy stirred up and allowed me to see about myself. But this is not somebody I would normally be upset over ending a relationship. In fact, it's somebody I wouldn't want to be in a relationship with. So it's just really amazing to me to see how powerful our minds really are and how powerful unchecked energy or pent up, trauma and things like that can inform our reality, because I always thought I was self-aware and, pretty fucking woke, but apparently I'm not. So I was humbled. But anyway, so this had stirred up so much stuff because I want to get back to the whole core wound component. And I wanted to kind of share my experience to this point because, what I saw in, upon reflection of this experience is that this dynamic had stirred up a lot of stuff in me that is around safety and security and the ability to take care of myself and the want to be accepted. And I think, these are very broad things that many people could say that they have a similar core wound, and then we respond accordingly. So for me, it was, I was just kind of like lovesick, if you will. And again, I'm like, I wasn't even really in love when I look at it. It was just the energy. And then now that I'm further away from it, I can see that with this stuff with the core wound, that rather than putting that energy into myself of, building up myself or the encouragement I was giving him in the ways that I was giving it, that I needed to be giving that to myself. So that's how it was triggering for me, because I had this belief that that I couldn't take care of myself, and that I would need somebody outside of me to do that, to take care of my stuff. Which I never really thought I had that conscious belief, because it's like consciously I would be like, hell no, I'm an independent woman, but I am, and I look back on my major relationships when I was married or when I was with someone and we lived together. I was always the earner. I was always like the head of the house, if you will. So I couldn't understand why at the time, like why I was feeling this way. And then I was like, my life's pretty good, even though it's been pretty crazy. I'm like, enjoying myself and, enjoying the things I get to do for work and everything, and my friends and new experiences. But this had just stirred up so much of some of that compounded trauma. And for me, I related it to the experience of loss. It was a part of my grieving process of this whole, big chunk of my life that had come to an end. It was like the end of a cycle. And this person was a catalyst for, kind of blowing the doors off. So around I guess I would say like the middle of 2018, I just got to this point where I was like, I was still into it, but again, like I couldn't, at the time I could just was like, so into it. And now I look at it, I'm like, my God, you fool. Um, but I finally was just like, you know what, whatever. And I was still intrigued about this whole topic of twin flames and spirituality, because I've always lived in like the metaphysical world my whole life, and things that I enjoy doing. And so I had really appreciated and loved a lot of what I had explored and read about, and people I was talking to who were really struggling on their path. It was great to have this connection and community as we were all trying to figure our stuff out, or individually, trying to figure our stuff out. So I had decided, I was like, you know what, I've always been a tarot reader and kind of an advisor to a lot of people. Maybe I'll, look into more of what I had been reading and understanding about, law of assumption, and more about mindfulness and meditation and things like that. So I started to focus more on that as more of a practitioner rather than just a study, and how I might be able to help other people and apply this to any tarot readings or sessions, or things that I do. Because I love talking to people about this stuff. I think it's so much fun. I'll talk to someone on the street about it, coworkers, whatever, you name it. If people want to talk about it, I will. Not the twin flame stuff so much. People are like, what the hell are you talking about? That's saved for like a special crowd who's really into spirituality and some of these like esoteric concepts. But it was really cool, and I started coaching people with law of assumption, and helping them with things. And I still have people that I coach, and clients and everything, which I really love. So I'm so grateful for the fake twins being a catalyst for me, and like opening that all up, because in 2021 I met the person who I believe is my twin flame. And I don't use that term, like I don't use that term loosely, because it's something I don't really talk about a lot. I mean, only place I really talk about it anymore is here on my channel. There isn't anyone really in my personal life that I discuss this with, including my twin. We don't use that term. And but it was something I didn't even think about when I met him. And we had just an instant connection. It felt very easy and effortless. Conversations could flow like for hours. And that's not, out of the norm for me. I could talk to a tree for hours. But it was different. It was very different. The conversations, just the similarities, the synchronicities. And still, I didn't think anything about it. Because I was so kind of over it after all the stuff with my fake twin. I was probably just like weary. So, we're kind of, moving along here in our connection, and getting to know each other better and everything. And there was, definitely an attraction on all levels. And I guess that, a couple months in, it just like, I actually stepped off. I was just like, whatever, I didn't know if things were going too slow, or I was just triggered. It had me pull back, like do a pullback of my energy. But for whatever reason at that time, I was just like, I'm out. And I told him that. I was just like, I don't know what's going on with you, but I'm out. And I never heard from him. He never responded to me. And I guess I know why, because that was kind of a bitchy thing to do when I look at it. Like, can't do certain things in text messages, but I was a different person then. And it's crazy what energy can do and what your own stuff can do. So 6 months had gone by, and during this time, I was like, well, why haven't I heard from him? What's up with that? And I was like, well, maybe I was right, because I had presumed that something was going on, something else was going on. And he wasn't acknowledging it, or like discussing it with me. So during this time, I was just like, some of the stuff that I had experienced with my fake twin flame came up again. And it was around the same stuff. The security, the ability to take care of myself, a fear of abandonment. And I can see where all of this was rooted in, the stuff from my formative years, where we had some challenges when I, like between 6 and 8 years old, with family and finances and things like that. And I can see how that even, that era in in our family's history, I can see how that affected my siblings as well. So it's really interesting now that I understand these concepts, and I talk to my family about it too, in the hopes that it helps other people who might be struggling with these things to heal and move forward. But for the most part, my family's just like, yeah, our dysfunction made us funny. And I'm figuring it out, and we love and support each other, which I'm so grateful for my family. It's like, I know it's a gift. I know not everyone has that. And I certainly don't take it for granted. But I could see where, that created my beliefs about stability, security, how maybe like my caregivers, they were so preoccupied because first of all, there were so many kids in the household and dogs and cats and relatives. Like there's always something going on in our house. I'm number 7 of 8 kids, and my parents were good people and they were generous people, and I truly believe that if they could have done better, they would have done better. But it's just, they were operating out of their own dysfunction, and where they were able to, rise up at that point in their lives. So, so I could see how my beliefs about relationships and men, and how men show up for me in relationships, and not just like romantic. I could see this even in like professional relationships, just like how if I feel supported by like a male boss. For the most part, I've always worked with women, just because of the marketing departments seem to be more women than men. But I always had like a lot of like strong female bosses. So it's something that I didn't even really think about until I actually had some male bosses, and I could see where sometimes my trauma would show up, and I had to remind myself like, no, this is my boss, they support me, I can ask for these things. So it's one of those things, like with our core wound and these beliefs, it has shown up probably, ever since that the wound was activated. And you could see it in various, shapes, forms, and sizes. However, it's this certain energetic dynamics, and for people who relate to a twin flames journey, I believe it was the twin flames energy that blew us up, that just blew things like right off, the doors right off of it. So during that 6-month break with my twin, I could see where my beliefs were showing up, and where I needed to do a little more healing, because it was similar to what my fake twin had triggered in me. And that was really explosive with him. That's why I'd always thought, like, based on what I read, like, oh, well, this is my twin, this is what they do. But not necessarily. I had used some of these tools and mechanisms that some coaches and other teachers who say that they, might have a mechanism on how to determine if someone is your twin. Like, I did stuff like that with my fake twin, and like none of it matched. But when I did stuff like that with my real twin, it totally synced up. So it just made it interesting to see how with his energy, our dynamic, maybe it was just me, I was just like, I'm so freaking tired of dealing with this. I'm just going to deal with it because I can't fake it anymore. I can't fake the energy. I can't fool the energy. I have to address this because my undercurrent, my underlying belief system, my subconscious, my programming, it creates an energy, and energy is tangible. And then that magnetizes in things into your life accordingly. So even though I had believed that, I had been pretty self-aware my entire life, and even when I met my fake twin flame, I was just moving along in life like, yep, this is it. This is how you do it. But I didn't. I was acting out of trauma. I didn't really know who I was. Didn't know myself very much, and I had to address that because I just couldn't keep going on and living with like that energetic pain, that wound, that invisible like wound that we feel that almost feels like there's something wrong with us. So, with my real twin, I finally was just like, I'm so done with this. I'm done with like faking the energy, like trying to fool my energy or trick my energy. So it's then when I really started to kind of, double down on it. And even still, like I had layers I had to address. I was still dealing with, you know, over a decade of craziness with a marriage, and then, you know, the ending of that, and then the loss of my parents and my sister, who was like my second mom. And we lost her to COVID in 2020. So it was just something that, like, it opened more stuff up for me to address and heal. And so much of it, you know, in this perspective, you know, or this term healing, and what does that mean? I mean, some people say, like, you don't need to heal, and I guess that depends on how you define the term heal. Me personally, I had some shit I needed to take care of. I needed to understand, like, what was going on within me, and how sometimes, like, we're on like this hamster wheel, and we just have like a dialogue or a monologue going on, like our inner narrative, like what we believe or how we perceive something or people, or situations. And you can feel your energy, and you may be like a push energy, like you may feel yourself like energetically almost like kind of moving towards something or lunging, or you might be a pull energy, and that is like, you know, pulling back on your energy. And I could literally feel that, like, within the energetic centers of my body, and the chakras. So I could feel in certain situations, like with my fake twin, there were times that I just wanted to like lunge, like not in a physical way, but just like my energy was pushing. And when I met my real twin, I could feel where my energy would push and pull. So it was this dynamic that I had to understand, like what my energetic centers were telling me or sharing with me, and how to be more aware of that, and use that to my advantage. So for me, I would feel it in my my solar plexus chakra, my sacral chakra, with my fake twin, and with my real twin, I would feel it in my solar plexus chakra and in my heart chakra. So with my real twin, it was more supportive, and more of an exchange and an interaction, versus, you know, the experience with my fake twin was more physical and more like in and out. And I don't know how else to describe that. These are my own personal experiences, and you may have your own too, because this is why I encourage people who were on this path, or people whom I coach, to understand your energy centers, to tap into that and get connected to what the sensations are. Because when you are really in soul, as the coaches say, or in the vortex, as Abraham Hicks says, your stuff really does spin in a different way. And I love that term, in the vortex, because it's such a great way to describe it. It really is this, it's like a pleasant vacuum feeling, if you will. Whereas when stuff feels off, like I can feel it in my gut, but I also can relate to it now too. Me personally, when I feel like my energy center is like that anxious feeling in my stomach, like not the good butterflies, it's just, to me, I'm like, oh, that's just an early warning device. Like, pay attention to it. What is it telling me? Is there any imminent danger? No? Okay, I'm good. Okay, this is energy. What's coming up? Do I need to worry about this? No, it's just my stupid stuff. It's just stuff I told myself, you know, at this point, 44 years ago, you know, when I was 6 years old. You know, so this is the importance of, you know, understanding, you know, what program you are operating out of. And I know sometimes for some people that can be a little painful to go back to those times or reflect upon them. So this is where, you know, interacting with the appropriate professional or a mental health practitioner is really important to do, because sometimes some people need to be led and guided on this. I went about a lot of it alone. You know, I did consult people along the way. I didn't have like a steady therapist. I kind of go and interact with the right, you know, type of therapist or coach or whatever, based on where I'm at in my process. So for me, that was really helpful. Um, so if you feel that that's something that you need to do, I encourage you to find, the right therapist or resources that can help you on this. And if you're curious to learn more about your psychology and maybe how your push-pull energy is showing up, which is a lot of what Leora talks about in her ebook, The Twin Flame Sacred Keys, you can learn more about your attachment style. And your attachment style really speaks to that. And Leora, she doesn't say the phrase attachment style in her ebook, but that's pretty much what she's indicating. So the Personal Development School has a free attachment style quiz that is pretty comprehensive, and you can get the results there for free, and I'll have a link in the pinned comment to that. But you can then take that information and just do a little more exploration, like search up that term on Google and see if you can find some videos about it, like the Crappy Childhood Fairy. She has some good content on it. Holistic Psychologist, Personal Development School. Thais Gibson is the one person who's like always in their content. She has a channel on YouTube and tons of great content. So definitely check out those resources, because your attachment style can inform how your push-pull energy works. So for me, I needed to understand it on an intellectual level as well as what I was feeling, like the whole, I guess, clairsentient aspect of it, like that feeling, that energy. And it allows me to see when, like, for example, with my core wound stuff, I get sometimes triggered when I'm learning something new, especially at work, because work is like my livelihood, and it's what drives, and pays for my home and this and that. So right now I'm learning a lot of new stuff, and it makes me feel a little uncomfortable because I want to do well. And then also at the same time, I don't want to not be a good performer and potentially have it affect my job, which seems totally irrational because, I was like, well, you know what, if it isn't here, it'll be somewhere else, and same for you. Like when we have these feelings or we're worrying about something, like for whatever reason, like my thought process is like, this is the only thing, when it's not the only thing. So you can see where lack mindset can also affect your outcomes as well. So once I learned to understand, like, and connect with my energy, and just to be able to leverage it as an early warning device. So I was feeling something off in, let's say, my solar plexus chakra or in my heart chakra, I can tap into that because now I'm acquainted with that physical sensation, and I'm paying better attention to it. And what had helped me there quite a bit was meditation, and being in stillness, basically. Just being able to see, who is me, the soul, versus who is, where's the mind or the ego coming into play. And that energy can be really tricky because your mind, is trying to understand everything through, is processing mental concepts. And then, we are led to believe that we are our mind, that we are our thoughts, when really we are the observer of all of that. So stillness allows you to connect with, like, who you are, and then be able to observe those energies and what they might be, how they may have been stirred up or what's causing them. And usually that's trauma. It's our underlying belief system. It's our thoughts. So when I first started out on this, I was applying so many different principles and tools and tactics to, move through the process with the goal to get a person. And as I was, kind of, moving through all of this, and I realized, I'm like, this isn't really the goal. The person is just who triggered me. So, and when I got real about that, it just made me see how powerful that energy can be. And what I really saw was that the energy that I was putting out there with my fake twin and on my real twin, and maybe a couple of other relationships I have had, but perhaps weren't as pronounced, was energy that I really wanted to be putting back on myself. And for whatever reason, I just didn't, because of how I was raised or my trauma or how I believed I was supposed to be in a relationship or how a man was supposed to be with me in a relationship, I was putting that energy on him. I was fawning on him. And I know exactly where that's pointed and rooted in my wound, in my core wound. And that is that, I need to do these things so I can be taken care of and be safe and secure. And again, I never consciously ever thought of that. So the fact that this energy was stirring that up, and when I got to the root of this, of what I was looking for outside of me, it was that. And I could see how that drove pretty much how I have been most of my life in different ways. So that right there is, in my belief and in my experience with this, is my core wound. And the things that I did to heal it were, one, reparenting myself and being more encouraging with myself, and acknowledging my accomplishments and acknowledging what I do well, encouraging myself to do things that make me happy, or make me, as far as my occupation, that I enjoy doing, and make me productive. And is every day perfect? Nah, but close. It is what it is. And I know that term, I hate using that term, but stuff will be what it needs to be. But the one constant in life is you. And how are you showing up for you? So if you look at Leora's book and you look at the exercises she has in her book, a lot of it is along the lines of what I just said, and it's based in reflection and understanding how you operate. And when I understood that, and then I found her ebook, later, I guess it was like 2020, end of 2021. Actually, I think that's when it was. It was right before my twin and I kind of reconnected after like a 6-month separation. And then I could see where I was doing these things and how I was acting out of trauma, acting out of old, beliefs and patterns. And that was hugely eye-opening. And then I did her exercises formally, and I was like, wow, this is like the culmination of everything I have been reading and learning and doing since 2017. And here it is in this under 100 pages ebook, and beautifully written, like very poetic. And if you're into like celestial energies and things like that, I think you'll really appreciate it. I was just so floored when I saw her exercises. I was like, oh my gosh, this is all about the psychology and the attachment style, what our programming is, what we believe, and then that energy that we put out and our thoughts that we're putting out there. So I was seeing the cycle, and I was like, oh my God, this is like, now that I see it, I can be more aware of it. And then over the course of 2022, I just continued to work on it, and I could see where I was imbalanced. My twin would come in, my twin would go out, and it was so interesting. And it took a little while for me to maintain that balance and steadiness until, things were more stable and balanced with him. And it can be done. And at times it was really hard, because that ego energy can be a real wildcat when it wants to be. At least mine was. So, in summary, the core wound, and this is my opinion, and you can read Leora's book to learn more about, her views on it. But in my opinion, for me, my core wound was activated I was about probably 6.5 years old, and it was triggered by dynamics and flux happening within our household. And it was around finances and stability and security. So looking at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, or the root chakra, I could see where I was getting stuck in my thinking. Even though I was doing and able to provide for myself, I would get worried that those things would go away. And I could see how that was rooted in the situation from my childhood. So, looking back at our formative years, or major things that we believe were big pivots in our lives, we can see how our like inner child stores that, if you will, or how our trauma, like we store that trauma, and then it shows up. And sometimes it shows up in a very subtle way, or sometimes it'll show up like a thunderstorm. So understanding those things and then how they may have informed your beliefs about how you see the world or how the world sees you, how you show up in relationships or how people in those relationships show up for you. A lot of that trauma informs that, plus what we hear from society, or what we think we're supposed to be doing based on certain ages or milestones or genders or things like that. So understanding those things about yourself helps you see how you've been operating, and then from there it allows you to see energetically like what your push and or pull dynamic is like. So to me, that's where understanding our core wound comes into play. And I would imagine for most everyone, it's all the same stuff, but it just, kind of spins off differently. And I found an article about this. I think the website's Lone Wolf or something. And I'll include that in the pinned comments too. That article talks about, what a core wound is in a little more detail. So I'll include that resource in the pinned comments as well. So in terms of healing, that's up to you. If you feel like you can understand these concepts and apply them. But I always recommend, and this is what I do for myself, is I focus on my self-concept and, what makes me happy, what's important to me, what do I need to run and function as a human being? And what do I want to experience in life? What do I want to experience more of in life? And I have a free ebook on my website, evolvedchit.com. Go to the Get Started page and you can download the 7-Day Mindset Reset. It's pretty much all the stuff that all the coaches talk about, like law of assumption and manifestation coaches. It's just 7 days of simple exercises, of things that you can do to help you get into alignment with who you are and what you want to experience in this life. Also, while you're there, you can read my blog posts. I have a ton of content out there about just the spiritual journey, law of assumption, affirmations, mindfulness, and so on. And I'm also offering coaching sessions now. So if you're interested, you can connect with me for a 30 or 60-minute session. Just follow the instructions on the page. Let me tackle this topic again because I've attempted to record this a few different times, and I just wanted to share my personal experiences and how I related to it, and then what I did to move through it. So I hope this has been helpful for you, and I would like to remind you that you are loved, you are wonderful, you are amazing, you are necessary, and you are so freaking needed right now. So step into your power! And until next time, I'm sending you lots of love and good vibes for your journey. Bye!